Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to, I always say it, an impromptu video. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is doing fine, and I hope everyone's progressing through their week relatively serenely and in one piece, as it were. I'm doing all right, thank you very much. I had a busy few days, man. And I've got another one coming up tomorrow, and then it gets a bit quieter towards the end of the week. A lot of faffing around, a lot of time-consuming stuff, as I'm sure you've all had the pleasure of having to endure yourselves, especially phone calls to authorities or companies or doctor surgeries or whatever it is, your banks, whatever it is you have to do. And I don't know if it's just me, but I have a feeling it's all taking way longer now than it used to do in the old analog days, right? We've got all these tools given to speed things up or make things easier or nicer or slicker for us, more user-friendly, all the rest of it. And in actual fact, all these processes seem to take like forever. So anyway, but now that my brain has sort of come back down to earth a little bit today, I thought I would just put this video out just to mention a couple of things and also make a couple of announcements. I'll do that at the end. I want to keep this video relatively short because Facebook seems to, for example, chop and change all the time. 1 minute you can't post a video on there that's bigger than 15 minutes in length, and next minute it's fine. Apropos Facebook, just for your information, from I think the 9th of June this year, any live videos that you've done and have kept up on Facebook will be deleted. So just so that you know, so if anybody's been live streaming, an event or something like that, and they've left it up on their page or whatever, or saved it or whatever, they will be deleted. I got a message through today. I'm sure you all have, but just a friendly reminder, because that's easy to forget, because it is a few months down the road from now, although time is flying. But that's another topic. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm doing okay. It's been an interesting, like I said, busy but interesting few days. I know there was a weekend in between, but not just in terms of what I had to sort out and do myself, but also in terms of what I've been sort of seeing through the box via the mainstream media, of course. I do keep an eye on it a little bit and watch a bit of TV here or there, because to be honest with you, I want to see what the hell they're talking about. And, I think that's quite important. Not for entertainment purposes and not for information purposes in terms of, oh, there's this or that happening. No, I just want to see how they present it, how they talk about it. But I mean, it's all repetitive anyway. The things that we hear today, we heard in very similar fashion 30 years ago. Whether it's certain foes in the world, big bad Russia, this, that, or the other, there's certain narratives that just simply haven't changed. They just get recycled and brought out for the next generation in the hope that the generation before eventually sort of falls into forgetfulness or eventually dies out, right? And that's the way it works. That's the way it's always worked. But there's nothing new. Anyway, just cracking on quickly then. So I wanted to start with good and bad-ish news, if you like. First of all, well done and congratulations to all those who, here in Bournemouth, did a day of reflection on Sunday, a couple of days ago. I remember putting out a video a little while back where I talked about how the mainstream, the authorities and all those were urging people to take the 9th of March and put it in their calendar as a reflection day to celebrate and give thanks and think about the helpers and all that sort of stuff during the past few years that we all had to endure. And so, of course, some eagle-eyed people got onto it straight away and decided to counter that with their own reflection day of reflection, one that's way more accurate and is to be, I won't say celebrated, but to certainly be earmarked for future times. because it's actually more a day of sadness, not a day of celebration. Because, if you look a little bit closely and listen around and keep your eyes peeled, you'll know that there are cases that are increasing by the day, all after effects from what was forced upon us as a society, as a world, over recent years through illnesses, deaths, and all sorts of stuff. It's pretty horrific. You can't talk about it with certain people because immediately you'll have fingers pointed at you. You'll be called names, the usual thing. But I know a lot of people who were on that side of the fence and were having a go at me, for example, and things like that, who have now understood and kind of get it. So it's not a figment of some conspiracy theorist's imagination. It is a fact that, But anyway, I won't harp on that too much. But I thought it was great that they did it. I couldn't partake because I was busy, but I'm glad something did go on here in Bournemouth. I believe it kicked off at midday and went on throughout the afternoon. So well done to all those who were involved in that. You know who you are. I won't name you all by names because I will guarantee you I will forget a name and I'll end up digging myself a hole. So well done. And I'm chuffed to bits that people took the initiative and were proactive and went ahead and did that. And while we're talking about that and the reasons for that day of reflection, yesterday I was watching the news and just paying attention while I was doing myself some food. And they were talking about how, get this, since those events, 130,000 people have left the employ of the National Health Service here in the UK. 130,000 people. For whatever reason, I'm not going to start speculating and saying 130,000 people saw the lie, understood it was all a lie, and decided to down tools and bugger off. Although I will say that when I went on a few meetups and demonstrations, if you want to call them that, down in London, for example, we had right before our eyes paramedics and nurses and such like who were literally laying down their uniforms on the floor saying no more. After 30 years, that's it. They've had enough. They were disgusted at what was going on. Plenty of footage out there. Of course, it never got shown through the normal mainstream channels so that you can have a watch of it over dinner at the 6 o'clock news. It was never shown there. But trust me, plenty of people, including myself, I have a lot of that footage saved safely. In case anybody wants to take my YouTube channel down, feel free, still have the footage. And I know plenty of others who have got similar footage from other demos and gatherings of educational nature where that actually happened. In fact, one or two people who I ended up getting on with and becoming friends with were from that very sector, the health sector, and had a hard time of it. You could imagine, being one of the ones who understands what was going on and having to work amongst those who just denied it and decided to then vilify you because of your standpoint without looking at the facts and being observant and using some discernment. And of course, the common denominator in all of that is fear, isn't it? I'm not judging, but that's the way it is. So I thought that was quite an interesting stat, 130,000. That's a lot of people. That's bigger than the British Army in terms of manpower. All in, well, I won't say one foul swoop, but over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. That's a lot of people. And you just wonder where they all went in terms of employment or whatever. But I thought that was quite interesting. And following on from that, and I'm not here to scaremonger or anything like that, but it is a little bit telling that in the next couple of days, there will be announcements made here in the UK by the government, the mind controllers, at least the ones that you get to see. And they have already announced that there will be severe cuts ensuing, and the main sector that's going to be hit, or the main area that's going to be hit in terms of budget cuts, will be welfare. And they outlined exactly where they want to make those cuts, and it will be people claiming benefits, but health related benefits. So we're not talking lazy buggers, We're not talking people who can't be asked to work or anything like that. We're talking people who have already had to go through assessment procedures and processes and be tested and be questioned and be examined and all that sort of stuff, and go through an absolute jungle of paperwork and jump through a load of hoops, more hoops than in the local circus. And now that's all going to get reviewed, and they're going to make cuts there, and they're talking billions and billions of pounds that they want to save. And the way they feel is the best way to save that money or reclaim it, let's say, to be used elsewhere, is to go to the welfare sector and do it there. I mean, you can worry about it and go, oh my God, what does that mean for me? I'm not going to bother worrying about it, because what's the point in worrying? It's not going to change what will or won't happen. And all you're going to do is expend your own, it's got to be at the expense, I should say, of your own health, and you're going to hurt yourself by doing it. There is really no point. It's worth just being aware of and noting that, if you're affected by that you may well get phone calls, emails normally now, to call you in or whatever, and they'll more rigorously even vet you and to see if you remain qualified for your vital payments, right? And one of the things that they also mentioned in that announcement was mental health affected claimants of benefits. And isn't that interesting? Because when you think about it, over the last 20, 30 years, it was almost trendy to open up, engage with people, reach out, and talk about one's own mental health. It was kind of the thing to do. Everybody was encouraged to do it. You had local little drop-in centres and stuff that were talking all about it. Come to us, we'll help you. You can take part in this workshop, that workshop, all money-making things, by the way. Not really much more than that. You might get a bit of a cathartic benefit and a bit of a sort of a therapeutical benefit from it as the client. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of money changing hands with all these little organisations that offer these services. And here we are a little bit further down the road, and all those who have put their hands up and been honest and interacted and engaged with all these people are now going to be bearing the brunt. And so it's sort of like, oh, thanks very much. You put your hand up. Now we know who you are. Now we can affect you in a very derogatory way. I find it, I can't even think of the right word, to be absolutely honest with you. But deplorable is kind of in the right direction. So again, another thing here in the UK, at least, to look out for. I don't know what it's like in other nations. I haven't really spoken to many people because I've been so busy recently, but I will get on the phone soon and start talking to a few people who I know live in various different countries to find out what's going on there as well. I can imagine it will be similar elsewhere, because don't forget, countries is an administrative thing. In actual fact, the power and the agenda, if you want to call it that, is all-reaching. It doesn't see any borders or anything like that, right? You saw that in the last few years with lockdowns and all the rest of it. Everybody was doing the same thing wherever you went in the world. They may have tweaked it a little bit and changed the way things were implemented, or the heaviness at times, but at the end of the day, the same things were done everywhere, which is kind of the giveaway. So yeah, look out for that, especially if you're here in the UK and that does affect you. Talk to someone about it. Talk to your GP about it. I know, but it's the world we're in. Unless you can find other alternatives whereby you don't need A, that financial support, and B, that medical support and help, then obviously it won't bother you and you'll be fine. But if you are tied in with all of that, it could mean your rent payment for your accommodation or wherever you're living, right? It would mean your monthly money that you've got to live off and all the rest of it. And if you have no other option, then it can be of vital importance for you. Anyway, waffling on now. So I just thought I'd mention that. That's important to note. Moving on, other things that came in the news, and I just want to sort of revert back a little bit to the old news segments that I used to do. Interesting bit of news. I don't know if you've heard about it, but there was a collision off the coast of eastern England, the North Sea, vast area of water. And the collision involved, I believe, a Portuguese ship and an oil tanker, or let's say a ship, a vessel that was carrying, get this, jet fuel for the US Air Force. Now, this is the official narrative. These are the headlines, right? So these aren't my words. I'm just bringing over to you what they've announced over the TV, right, through their, So, oil tanker collided with another ship, and one of the ships are ablaze as we speak, or might not be right now. They might have actually extinguished it now, but was on fire for a while, according to the pictures I was seeing. Who knows where those pictures are? I can't verify it. I haven't got a boat. I haven't nipped out to North Sea to double check. But let's just take their word for it. As far as that's concerned, 43 million litres went to waste, allegedly, which translates into, I wrote it down, 903,000 imperial gallons, right? 903,000 imperial gallons. An imperial gallon is more than a US gallon. A US gallon is 83% of an imperial gallon, right? So did I say that the right way? But anyway, you get the gist. So that's quite an interesting number, isn't it? 903,000 imperial gallons have just gone to waste because two ships bumped into each other, forgetting that they have hyper-modern radar technology on board and navigation systems on board. And let's put it like this. If you tried, without your navigation systems, to bump into another boat in an open space of water, that in itself would be a very, very difficult undertaking, wouldn't it? Even if you tried to do it. So I find it, I'm a true believer in the old phrase that there is no such thing as coincidence, or there are no such things as coincidences, and I think this one falls into that category. Just saying, I don't know what you guys think, but that's certainly the way I'm leaning. I find it odd. But in one sense, I don't find it odd because it adds to the negativity, the speculation, US Air Force, jet fuel, and blah, blah, blah. See what I mean? And it feeds all into that further snowball effect of fear production via the media. The FearFest is well and truly underway, is it not? When you add to that, here in the UK at least anyway, add to that the whole health service thing that I was talking about a minute ago, and then you add that into the mix, you're thinking to yourself, oh, God, blimey, On top of that, yes, our Ukrainian friends again, our man Zelensky in the house, donning his, I don't know what it was this time, it looked a bit more black, more special forces look he had this time, partaking in a peace, what can we call it, summit with some officials. I don't know how high up within the administration the American guy was. It might have been vice president. I don't know if Trump's there. No idea. He might be in his lodge taking orders. No idea. But anyway, delegations from all sides are meeting in Saudi Arabia, of all places. A place that is famous for freedom of speech and women's rights and all the rest of it, and fair labour laws and stuff like that. Well, of course, that's obviously going to be the country that you're going to pick to ensure that at least your surroundings demonstrate the peace that you're trying to achieve. So well done there on that one. I mean, if that's not mockery, I don't know what is, just to add to the already existing mockery of the war itself. Don't forget, U2, the band, played a gig in the Kiev underground in 2022, in the middle of the war, the raging war, where Kiev was being smashed to smithereens. There they were, gigging it up in the underground. So, always spare a thought for our poor musicians who put their lives on the line to knock out a tune. And finally, something a bit more positive, a bit more down my street, quite interesting as well. On the local news, they from a town called, or city, sorry, it's got a cathedral, so we have to call it a city in this country. The city of Salisbury, which is a 15-minute drive away from Stonehenge, the henge of stones. Well, it's not actually stones, they're metal girders inside, but that's another story. They found, builders and constructors found by chance, of course, because there's no paperwork about this stuff. This is what I've been saying for a long time now, that a lot of old buildings, there are no plans to be found anywhere. Why? Because they didn't happen when we were around. They were built by maybe the likes of us, but in a different era or whatever, that we have no records of, because normally these buildings and constructions, you would have plans galore. I mean, the planning phase of any construction takes years in itself, especially if they're big, large constructions, you know what I mean, and complex, not just in style of architecture or whatever, but materials, manpower, all the rest of it, logistics. There's so much that goes into building a building, not just actually building it itself, right? It's all the pre-planning, the planning, and all that sort of stuff is extremely complicated and is extremely time consuming. And you have to record pretty much everything of it as well to know that, make sure you don't make a mistake along the way. Because if you make a mistake anywhere, it affects all the steps therefrom. You know, further from that moment on, if you get that wrong, that's it. Everything after that is wrong as well. So it's a really important part of the whole building process, right? I've worked on building sites. That's why I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And, you know, you need people like foremen. You need people like, I mean, there's so many types of high-end or highly qualified personnel that you have to oversee something like that. And what they found here in Salisbury were underground tunnel systems, plural. They said in the news they were brick lined. No, they're made of bricks. That's what they are. They're not brick lined. We do that today. We build houses with breeze blocks and then clad it with bricks. But back in the day, you see it on churches, you see it on town halls, bank buildings and all that sort of stuff. You'll find that there's cladding on the outside, and if you take the cladding away, there's bricks behind it. Bricks were the material that was used to make these things, not concrete slabs from the local factory or anything like that, right? So yeah, anyway, they found these tunnel systems, and quite interestingly in the whole thing was the fact that they interviewed a couple of elderly locals, what they thought of this, and they very openly, in front of the camera, said, well, they would have used the tunnels because they led to a place that they know today used to be a clinic or a hospital of some sort. They all presume that they used the tunnel systems to move people about so that they couldn't be spotted or viewed above ground by the general public. Isn't that interesting? We all have our speculation as to underground networks nowadays. I think they always existed. Of course, people don't just simply vanish and vaporize, right? For example, so if people, kids or whatever, go missing every year, where do they go? Now, that's another story, but I'm just saying tunnel networks are handy for very, very many reasons. Transporting goods quickly to avoid traffic above, but certainly transporting things that you don't want everybody else to see, right? But anyway, I found that very interesting. They also said that, you know, they used to, as kids, they used to play down in the tunnels many years ago, and then eventually they were discouraged from doing so, which reminded me of a story that my old landlady used to tell me when she was a child, back in the 50s, early 60s. She used to play with her friends in 50s. She used to play with her friends in tunnels below her house where I used to live. And all that area underground is connected up with tunnels. Until one day the police came along and bricked it all off in the 60s, 1960s. And of course now you can't access them at all. They're off limits. But I found that very interesting that they stumble across tunnel systems at a train station that itself dates back to 1850 officially, Salisbury train station. So there you go. I thought that was very interesting because that kind of links in nicely with the last video I did, which went on for about 45 minutes almost, where I ended up at a couple of viaducts here in Bournemouth, lots of arches, curving as well slightly, so just to build I mean, to build a straight line of bricks with arches is difficult enough, but to do it curving and all that is quite phenomenal. Beautiful constructions. If you haven't seen it yet, do take a look at my video, sort of the last 10 minutes of it, 15 minutes of it, if you don't want to listen to my chit chat preceding it. And then you'll see these constructions. They're absolutely phenomenal. All built by the Victorians, of course. Right. And there's another one I want to go and visit with some friends, a bit more outside of Bournemouth soon. One that's been earmarked for destruction by 2035 at a cost of £2 million. You'll wonder why, because they're beautiful constructions, amazing to look at. Built totally out of bricks. Yeah. But there you go. So I just wanted to bring that to you. Also, like I just said right at the beginning, a couple of announcements. On the 25th of March, Tuesday, it's always Tuesday, last Tuesday of every month, 25th of March, Steve Alonso and Joe Hanvey will be gracing us with their presence. Sorry about that. I just had a call come through that's asking me to stop the video. I'm not going to do that. They will be gracing us with their presence to talk about more the biblical aspect of our cosmology, specifically our realm. There are very many facets to flat Earth, if you want to call it flat Earth. I personally don't like that sort of slogan, flat Earth, because it gets used too often as a point of ridicule from others who just simply don't understand and haven't bothered looking. There's a bit more to it than that. It's not a slice of pizza floating through space or anything like that. But people, if they don't bother looking, then all they're going to have is ridicule, pointing fingers, thinking everybody's daft. It's not a belief, it's knowledge of the fact that we measure the Earth flat, and so that means our realm is flat, horizontal, level, right? What it's on, where it finds itself, and all the rest of it, what's beyond, no idea. Nobody's claiming they know that. But they're going to come in anyway on the they're not going to come in, but they're going to be beamed in, I should say, on a call on Tuesday the 25th of March, 7 p.m. at the Bridge House Hotel. And I think Joe Hamby wants to talk about something that he sort of talks about. He wants to talk about what could give the sun and the view of the sun's, what reason could be behind us seeing the sun in certain circumstances and whatever. Don't know. I'll be there to check it out and listen with curiosity as usual. I'll be talking at the end of April, but I'll go into that another time. It's not about me. Because I'll be talking about old world stuff. But yeah, so I'll be looking forward to that, Steve and Joe, to hear what they have to say. It's all knowledge, it's all information, and then you use your discernment, don't you? So, on that note, I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. I'm just looking around here because I've got a couple of notes jotted down. My memory is not as good as it once was. But yeah, I think I've got everything sorted there. So, like I said, Tuesday the 25th of March, 7 p.m. at the Bridge House Hotel. Be there if you can. It's good. Great group of people. Not good. Great group of people. Really enjoyable conversations. Always, every time. And always different people that come and go, whatever. And it's very enjoyable. I wouldn't go if it wasn't. Alrighty. So, until then, thank you for looking in. Take it all easy. And I'll see you all soon. Some of you much, much sooner. Until then, take it easy and bye for now.